All right, let's jump right in. We are about to investigate a mystery that honestly affects pretty much all of us. Have you ever stopped to think, why is it that in a world with more food, more medical knowledge than ever, why are so many of us struggling with chronic diseases? Well, using the book Silent Killers No More as our guide, we're going to piece together some fascinating historical clues to finally understand our modern health crisis.
And here's where things get weird. This is the central paradox of our time. I mean, look around us. We are living in an age of just incredible abundance. But that abundance? It's come with a hidden and very steep cost. We're talking about chronic illnesses, things like obesity, diabetes, heart disease, the silent killers. And they are spreading like wildfire. So we've ended up in this strange situation where we're both overfed and undernourished at the same time. It's a global emergency, not of scarcity, but of plenty.
And the cost is just staggering. 5 million. Let that number sink in for a second. 5 million. That's how many deaths every single year can be directly linked to complications from excess body weight. It's this massive crisis that just kind of simmers under the surface, often until it's way, way too late. So this all leads us to the big question, right? The one we're really trying to unpack here. In a world that's overflowing with food, why on earth are we getting sicker? What is going on? Well, the answer, as it turns out, is a fascinating story about a profound mismatch. And our investigation into that story starts right now with our first major clue. So, for our first clue, we're going to travel back in time about a century ago. And what we find there reveals a powerful, kind of shocking truth about who or what is really calling the shots when it comes to our health. Seriously, this idea, it flips everything we think we know about willpower and personal choice completely on its head. I love this quote because it's such a challenging idea, isn't it? We all like to think we're in the driver's seat, that we're making all these conscious choices. But what if that's not the whole story? What if our environment, the food available to us, our social norms, even the cities we live in, what if that writes the first draft of our health story? And our willpower? Well, that's just us making a few small edits at the margins of a script that's already been written for us. And here is a perfect real-world example of that idea in action. Okay, picture this. It's the early 1900s in the Philippines, and suddenly people start suffering from this mysterious illness. We're talking paralysis, heart failure. It was devastating. And the cause wasn't a virus. It wasn't some kind of personal failure. It was one simple environmental change: the introduction of industrial polished white rice. See, the new milling process stripped away the rice's natural thiamine, a crucial nutrient. And just like that, an entire population got sick. Not because they made a bad choice, but because their world, their food supply, had literally changed right under their feet. This story is just a textbook example of something that health experts today call the double burden of malnutrition. It's another one of those paradoxes, right? It's where people can be totally overfed on calories, but at the same time, they're literally starved of essential nutrients. Think about it. The people with beriberi had full stomachs. They weren't hungry, but their bodies were screaming for one key micronutrient. It's like this eerie warning from the past that sounds an awful lot like what's happening to us today. Okay, so the beriberi story? It shows us how even a small environmental shift can have absolutely massive consequences. So now, let's go even further back, way, way back, to the single biggest, most game-changing environmental shift in all of human history. This is the moment our story was completely, fundamentally rewritten. For almost all of our existence, this was the human story. We were small, nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers, always on the move, following the food. And then, about 12,000 years ago, we did something totally radical. We stopped. We settled down. We became farmers. And let's be clear, this wasn't just like a career change. This was a complete transformation of what it even meant to be human. So let's actually look at the trade-offs here, because it was a huge deal. As hunter-gatherers, right, our diet was incredibly diverse. We ate whatever was in season, whatever we could find. And our lifestyle? Constant motion. But as farmers, we gained a more stable food supply, which is a huge plus. But our diet? It shrank down to just a few staple crops. And our lives became way, way more sedentary. We basically traded the risk of, say, a saber-toothed tiger for the brand new risks of crop failure, conflict over land, and a new, invisible threat that we didn't see coming. Yeah, that new threat, for the first time ever, we started living literally side by side with domesticated animals.
And while this gave us a reliable source of food and labor, it also exposed us to a whole bunch of new germs. The book gives this really powerful story of a man named Malik Gushim. His family got sick after they were tending to a sick goat. He survived, but his youngest son, he died from what we now know was listeriosis, a disease that passed through the animal's milk. That new closeness could be absolutely deadly.
Okay, so let's recap our clues detective style. Clue number 1. A modern epidemic of malnutrition caused by a seemingly small change in the food environment. Clue number 2. A massive, ancient shift that completely changed our diet, how we move, and our exposure to disease. We have the clues. Now, it's time to connect the dots and solve this mystery. And here it is. This is the absolute key to understanding everything. For almost all of human history, our bodies had one prime directive, one main problem to solve: survival. And survival meant surviving in a world of scarcity. Our genes became absolute experts at storing energy, at getting through periods of hunger, at squeezing every last bit of value out of every calorie. Because for our ancestors, famine wasn't just a possibility, it was a constant, real, and present danger. And then this happened. Just look at this graph. It's called the Great Inversion for a reason. Over just the last couple of centuries, a blink of an eye in evolutionary time, that red line, the risk of famine, has absolutely plummeted. It's basically gone. And at the exact same time, that yellow line, the sheer number of calories available to us, has just skyrocketed. We completely re-engineered our world, but our biology, it never got the memo. So now you have this ancient biology, this programming that's hardwired for scarcity, and it's suddenly dropped into a world of constant, overwhelming, unprecedented abundance. That, right there, that is the great biological mismatch. That is the answer to the mystery. It's the very heart of our modern health crisis. And this quote just sums it up perfectly. Think about it. The very things that were once our greatest strengths, our biological superpowers for survival, those thrifty genes that helped us store fat really efficiently and made us crave high-energy foods, those exact same tools have now become our biggest liabilities. All because the environment they were designed for is gone.
Wow. Okay, so we've gone on quite a journey, haven't we? From a mysterious epidemic in the Philippines all the way back to the dawn of agriculture. But what does all this deep history actually mean for you and me living our lives today? Let's bring it all home.
All right, here are the big things to take away from all this. Number 1, and this is so important, the struggle that so many of us face with our health, it is not a personal failure of willpower. It's a biological mismatch. It's not you, it's the environment. Second, always remember that Berry lesson. Our environment really does write that first draft of our health story. And finally, knowing this history is actually incredibly empowering. It completely reframes the problem. It means the goal isn't to fight our own bodies. The goal is to get better at navigating an environment our bodies were never built for.
And that really brings us to the final, crucial thought. Look, we don't get to write the first draft of the script anymore. Our modern world has pretty much taken care of that for us. But we are the editors. We can't change our ancient biology, that's for sure. But what we can do is make conscious, deliberate edits to our own personal environments. So the question I want to leave you with is a simple one. Your environment wrote the first draft. What edits will you make?